shit from the
You're going to hate me because I come to your town and we beat your team.
You're now tuned in to one of the realest sports podcasts for Kentucky basketball.
3 in the air, good again!
And football.
The Kentucky defense steps up again.
Just an opinionated Kentucky sports fan podcast.
Maybe it's a Kentucky accent.
With Jay Hayes and JD Hall. This is what we do.
Let's go!
Religiously Kentucky.
Big Blue Nation, what is up? I'm your guy, Jay Hayes, and he is
his voice of reason, JD Hall.
And we are Religiously Kentucky. I don't know why I came in like all hyped up. I was going for a more monotone, like, hey, because everyone knows by now. If you don't want to know.
Right.
Kentucky season is no more. Over. Done. Left after the first round of the NCAA tournament, getting beat by St. Peter's 85-79.
And an absolute surprise. Like,
yes.
That night watching the game, like, I've taken it upon myself over the last several years to not get overly emotional, overly upset, angry, whatever, while watching basketball games. But that night, I kind of reverted back to my old self, smacking the table, yelling. And I'm not proud of that because,
Right.
I try on our podcast here. I try and be the guy that's not overly emotional. It's kind of, hey, look at it this way. This and
Are
happen.
You saying that I'm overly emotional?
No, but I try and kind of not look at anything with an emotional kind of slant to it. But that night during the game, I was that old JD again.
Yeah.
And it took me, it was another hour before I could go to bed because I had to calm down and all that stuff. But by the next day, I had moved on. I was over it because whatever happened.
Right.
Still being pissed off, still being upset, still letting it ruin my day, my week, my month, whatever. It's not worth it because, again, at the end of the day, it's just a basketball game.
Right.
And there are things going on in this world that are much more important than Kentucky losing a basketball game.
Right.
So, I took that perspective starting the next day to just move on and not be emotional about it anymore, not let it affect me, not let it ruin the way that I felt about this season leading up to those last two games.
Right.
I
don't think anything's wrong with that feeling. It's just that it's competitive. When you lose, it's
no, yeah,
and it hurts, and it's I get that, but maturity comes, like you said.
But the thing is, there's a lot of people in this fan base that live their life and how their life is going, good or bad, on whether or not Kentucky basketball or Kentucky football is winning or losing games.
Right.
And I used to be one of those fans.
I did too.
When Kentucky would lose a basketball game, everybody around me was miserable because of how I acted.
Right.
And the things that, I was short with everybody. I yelled at people. I was an asshole.
Right. After
those games. And it was the 2013-14 season. I decided to just what? I'm just going to watch the game. I'm just going to try and start just watching the games and not let it get to me as much as it used to.
That's 2014-15. That's when the voice of reason was born.
13-14, the magical run to the Final Four championship game. So, because we all went into that season talking about how great Kentucky was going to be, 40-0.
Right. Yeah.
Randall, the Twins, all those guys coming in. And then we had our struggles. They lost 8-9 games during the regular season.
Yeah.
But then they made that run to the Final Four in the championship game. So,
these
but that season
fluke games happen. Fluke games happen, and when you're on the losing end, boy, does it hurt. Yes, it sucks.
But let's not act like great coaches and great programs haven't had these losses before.
Yeah.
Duke lost to Lehigh, Mercer, Bucknell. Kansas lost to Northern Iowa and Ali Faroukmanesh, when he came down and took that three on a fast break, wide open layup, and he just pulls up and rips a three. Ole Miss losing. Well, they're not a great basketball program, but they were a great team that year. Ole Miss losing in the first round of Valpo, and that big upset. So these things happen in games.
Yeah.
Especially like if you've been struggling to score the ball like Kentucky had been the last few games.
Yeah.
And struggling to shoot the ball. And then you run into a team that plays pretty good defense like St. Peter's. They're ranked number 35 in the country.
Yeah, you got to give them props, man.
And defensive efficiency coming into that game. So, and if you're struggling to shoot the ball, that's what's going to happen. We saw that in the game before against Tennessee. It was disappointing to end the season with 2 straight losses. And we saw a lot of people when the bracket came out complaining about the seeding.
Yeah.
I
loved it.
Especially for Tennessee. But I think that their seeding, when that came out, and they came out as still a 3 seed, I think that proved to everybody, no matter what happened in that SEC tournament, nothing was going to change with the seeding of the teams.
Right.
Auburn and Kentucky were still going to be 2s. Tennessee was still going to be a 3, and that was it. Texas A&M was going to be left out, even though they should have been probably should have been in the tournament.
The committee was done.
They were done with all the seeding, and nothing was going to change that. Right. So for everybody thinking that Kentucky had a chance to pull a 1 seed, and maybe they did. No, but when you look at the bracket, and the way everything came out, do you really think they were going to pull a 1 seed? Because nothing changed with the seeding and the projections from. And I know he's not the greatest bracketologist, but Lenardi was pretty spot on with where the SEC teams and the Big 12 teams were going to be seated.
Right.
And nothing changed after the Tennessee win over Kentucky in the SEC tournament. So after the Kentucky loss, after the Auburn loss to Texas A&M, after Tennessee won the SEC tournament, nothing changed with the projections. Everything stayed the same. So that tells me the committee doesn't give a shit about what goes on in the SEC tournament because the championship game is not till Sunday.
Right.
So they're like, you know what? We're not even going to worry about anything that happens in this tournament because we don't care.
Right.
Like we'll take that automatic qualifier.
I didn't give a damn. You hear Cal over the years. I don't give a shit about. I mean, he does, and I'm not saying that, but he's like, they've already decided. I mean, it is what it is.
So I think the SEC should think about maybe moving the tournament up a day, so it ends on Saturday.
Yeah.
So that your tournament does hold some weight in what the seeding and what the committee is going to do.
Right.
But when our bracket came out, we talked about this last week. I loved the draw that Kentucky got. We had talked about Sean Bensel from Hoop Insight, and he breaks down all the stats and the shooting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And basically said Kentucky had basically a 0 chance of shooting as bad against St. Peter's or in the NCAA tournament as they did against Tennessee. And really, he was kind of spot on about that because they did not shoot quite as bad. They didn't shoot a whole lot better, but they did not shoot quite as bad.
Right.
From the Tennessee game to the St. Peter's game. And it sucks that Kentucky lost.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But let's not throw everything away and forget about what the majority of this season was like.
Fun,
based on 2 games.
Right.
And
disappointing as hell. Very, very disappointing.
Absolutely.
Let's not say people, well, you're not disappointed, blah, blah. Very disappointed.
Right.
But let's
Because
not
they had
throw
a
the
chance to
success
make a
away.
run.
Right.
And, there's a lot of people online complaining about Cal and the coaching and the team and saying they're doing the same shit they've done for 10 years. Like, no. Like, things
I mean, you
obviously
even had
changed.
the NBA analyst, Jonathan Givani, come out and say he's never going to win with this offense and
Right.
how
And
bad the offense was.
And that was on that play he was talking about was a tie drive into the paint, and there was 4 St. Peter's guys get there.
Right. I mean, I thought it was funny that he only picked, like 2 or 3 plays out. It didn't talk about the offense that they ran in January or
right. And that's
like what?
And that's leading back to my point. This team offensively and defensively, let's be honest,
right,
was playing really good basketball up until February 12th. That was the second injury to Ty Washington, to that left ankle.
Right.
He was never the same after he hurt his ankle against Auburn. Because that was the game after we ran Tennessee out of our building.
Right.
And then we're beating Auburn. We got a 9-point lead against Auburn, and Ty gets hurt.
Yeah.
And he was never the same because going into that game, he was over 40% from 3, 50% from the floor, and I think 80% from the foul line. So, or over 80% from the foul line. And then the last 6 weeks of the season, so after he came back, he shot under 40% from the floor.
Yeah.
And his free throw percentage dropped all the way down to 70% for the year. So that injury was huge for him.
Yes.
And he comes back in the Tennessee game, gets injured again. And you saw the frustration on his face when he left the floor. You saw him smacking the seat and being pissed off and everything else. And then Xavier gets hurt in that game, hurts his wrist. Now, granted, it was his non-shooting wrist. It was his right hand, not his left. But he gets hurt. He misses games. So now you've got Grady and Mintz, and Grady was already playing a ton of minutes. He was already playing like 35 minutes a game before those injuries. Now you've got those 2 guys get hurt. So you've got 2 guards basically to play the entire game, 2 ball handlers. And we saw what happened in the Alabama game. Grady was great in the Alabama game. 7 of 9 from 3. But I think that game was kind of like the tipping point for him.
Yeah.
As far as with his legs and with his shooting and his confidence. And because from that game on, he made like 6 threes the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And he only made more than 1 3 in one game the rest of the year after that. And that was the 2 that he made against Vandy in the SEC tournament. So now you've got Grady who's banged up and has lost his confidence. And coming into I think it was the Florida game, Davion Mintz comes out and he's got his right hand taped. Right, his right hand in his thumb. And that was taped the rest of the year. So we can talk all we want about Cal and his coaching. Can he update some things? Yeah, obviously. There are always things that you can do to improve.
But who better than a coach like Cal who has adapted with time and who has a resume like he does?
Right.
To come out and say that he couldn't right the wrong, so to speak, or to change with time.
Right.
That's absurd.
Right. And we saw it after last year. He replaced his entire coaching staff. He basically replaced the entire roster with new players. And there was one injury that changed everything else for this team, and that was CJ Frederick at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Because you lost a guy that you could basically then split time with Grady, and he wouldn't have to play 35 minutes a game.
Yeah.
He could have played 20 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And, and you could have spread those minutes over with another body who was a proven college shooter not Dante Allen, who had a couple of great games last year, and obviously did not shoot well this year in the games that he got a chance, which was in the non-conference where he got a lot of playing time and missed a lot of shots, shooting 18% from the floor. And if you can't make shots in those games where there's no pressure, should we as fans expect you to come in a game against like Tennessee or Auburn or St. Peter's in the NCAA tournament where the pressures are going to be so much more and make shots then when you can't make shots when there's no pressure on you?
There's a lot of fans that do, but
right,
no,
there are.
But no.
And so losing CJ Frederick kind of changed everything because you had 4 guys for 3 spots.
Yeah.
Once CJ got hurt. Now instead of 5 for 3. So you could have played everybody between 20 and 25 minutes if CJ's there.
Yeah.
Instead of between 30 and 35 minutes. And that caught up to him because you can see it in the shooting numbers in the last 2 games, especially in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Against Tennessee, Kentucky was 2 for 20 from 3 and 22 of 64 from the floor.
Yeah.
So 10% and 34% from the floor. Against St. Peter's, they were 4 out of 15 from 3, 26%, 26 to 61, 42.5%. Those aren't great.
What about the free throw line? Free throw line.
Or, free throw line, I think they shot 67% against St. Peter's. So, and you got 35 free throws.
Yeah.
So if you shoot 75%,
right,
you win that game. So and breaking it down to, and I'm not blaming the players because injuries happen.
I'm not blaming the players, but you do have to hold them accountable.
But that's what I'm saying. There's blame to go around from the top all the way through the roster.
Right.
Okay. Everybody is accountable for what happened in these last two games, especially.
Right. So
let's talk about the UT game where Kentucky went 2 of 20 from 3. Grady was 1 for 8 from the floor, 0 for 5 from 3. Ty, not terrible, 6 of 16 from the floor, but he was 1 of 7 from 3. Mintz, 0 for 6 from the floor, 0 for 3 from 3. And Wheeler was 3 for 11 and 0 for 2. That's in the Tennessee game that they lost by what was it, 6?
Yeah.
In the tournament. If those guys make a few threes, Kentucky wins. You're talking about Grady, who's a 42% three-point shooter for the year. Ty, when he came in, was one of the best shooters in the country.
Yeah.
You saw it all over the AAU circuit coming before in the summer where he was winning all the three-point shootouts.
Yeah.
Mintz, who was a career 38% shooter. If those guys just make one more three, Kentucky wins.
Yeah.
One more three each. And in that, so those guys combined to go 10 for 41 from the floor for 24% and 1 for 17 from 3 for 6%. How are you going to win those games when your 4 playmakers and shooters shoot that poorly from the floor and from the 3?
Ladies and gentlemen,
how can you
voice
expect
of reason
to win that game? You know why they were in that game? Because Keon Brooks went 7 for 11 for 19 points and 5 rebounds, and Oscar went 5 for 10 for 13 points and 11 rebounds.
Yep.
Those 2 guys, who are your 4 and your 5 guy, who are primarily going to play anywhere from the rim out to 15 feet. Keon's going to float around the perimeter. He's going to play out there, and get some drives, but everybody was struggling. So Cal kind of went back to, okay, let's do what we know with the guys that we know are performing right now, and we'll play through them. And that's what he did in that game, and that's what kept that game. That's what got that game to a point where they had a chance to win that game.
Right.
Let's step to the St. Peter's game. We already talked about how the team shot overall. Let's break it down to our 4 playmakers again, our 4 guards. Grady, 1 for 9 from the floor, 1 for 7 from 3. Ty, 2 for 10 from the floor, 1 of 2 from 3. Mintz, 3 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 3 from 3. Wheeler, 4 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 2 from 3. 10 for 34 for 29% and 4 of 14 for 29%. Again, when your volume shooters are playing that poorly and shooting that poorly, how do you expect to win the game?
Right.
The game was close because Toppin in the first half was 3 for 3. He had 9 points. Oscar was a beast the whole game, 11 for 16 for 30 points and 16 rebounds.
Yeah, beast mode.
Oscar kept them in the game.
Right.
So what is Cal supposed to do when his shooters aren't making shots? Right?
Right.
And people are going to say, well, I didn't see Collins or Allen or Hopkins.
Right.
Okay. Damian Collins wasn't going to change the outside shooting. That was the issue. The scoring in the paint wasn't an issue. Oscar wasn't an issue. So when Damian Collins comes in, you're complaining about the paint being clogged up. He ain't stretching the floor. He's not making an 18-footer. Toppin and Keon Brooks have the ability to make those shots, so you have to respect those shots.
Yeah.
Damian Collins doesn't have that ability yet. Hasn't shown. Well, I won't say he doesn't have that. Hasn't shown it in games yet.
Right.
To be able to make those shots.
Right.
So because your guards, all your guards, are all struggling to shoot from the perimeter and struggling to shoot from mid-range, what can defenses do now? They can pack in the lane. They can sag off you on defense,
and
because
that's
they don't.
What,
because you're
Giovanni
not
pointed out. That's the only thing he pointed out.
Because they don't have to worry about you making a shot right now, and until you start making shots, that's not going to change.
Yeah, they're not stepping
and
out.
teams, our opposing teams saw that from the LSU game on.
Yep.
That our shooters were struggling to make perimeter shots.
Right.
So now Cal has to flip the offense. Instead of playing outside in like we had been playing basically the entire year.
Right.
Now we got to play inside out through Oscar. And that clogs up the lane.
Yeah.
Because now you've got the opposing team is throwing 2 or 3 defenders at Oscar, and it's not always easy when you're getting double and triple team to find the open guy.
Right.
It should be. You should see where that guy's coming from, and the guy he's defending should be open. But it's easy to say that watching it from home on a TV.
Oh yeah. And let me say this too. Calipari is not above criticism.
No. And we've never
people
said,
say,
we've
oh,
never
well,
said that.
you're on Cal, blah, blah. Cal is not above criticism, but you have to hold the guys on the court accountable.
Because once the game starts, it's up to the players to execute the game plan.
Exactly.
And to make shots.
Yep.
Cal can't go out there and make shots for him. Cal can't go out there and make free throws for him. Cal isn't the one that went 1 for 6 from the free throw line in overtime against St. Peter's. Cal wasn't the one that threw the ball away 3 times in the final 8 minutes like Severe Wheeler did. He had 6 turnovers in the St. Peter's game. 3 of them came in the final 8 minutes. So there's a lot of stuff that went on in that game that you can't really blame Cal for.
Right.
Can you blame him for not playing Bryce Hopkins? Yes. Because I think Bryce should have gotten some more playing time throughout the year.
Yeah.
That would have helped with Grady's legs. Throw him in there to 3.
I can agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Because Bryce did show the ability to be able to make a perimeter jump shot.
Yeah.
He just didn't get a lot of chances to do it. So Bryce Hopkins should have gotten more playing time throughout the year. And that would have lessened the stress on Kellen Grady. And maybe at the end of the year, he doesn't lose his legs and he doesn't lose his shot. You don't think as Cal, now you've got Davion Mintz, you've got Severe Wheeler, you got Ty Washington, you got Kellen Grady, and you got CJ Frederick at the beginning of the season that you're going to be short on guards. But then you have 2 of those guys get hurt. And now you're short on guards. Yeah. You can't look into the future and see that that's going to happen.
What was Cal supposed to do in that situation?
Right. Like people are going to say he should have played Shaden Sharp. But we had Kyle Tucker on here.
Right.
And he said flat out that the family and Dwayne Washington, the mentor, the AAU coach, their whole plan from the beginning was for him not to come in and play.
Right.
And the only reason that Calipari agreed,
Cal didn't even want to. for the kid
That's
to
why-
come this early.
The only reason Calipari agreed to Shaden Sharp coming in mid-season was because they assured him that he
Right.
did not want to play and that he would be back next year.
Right.
That's what he was told, and they convinced him of that. So now, if you're Calipari and you've got a guy sitting on your bench who's a projected top 10 pick, would you like to be able to put him out there and play him? I guarantee you Cal would have been like, yes, let's get this kid out there on the floor and let's see what he can do. Let's see if he can help us.
More options.
But when he comes,
but
when he comes in with the expectation of himself to not play and to just practice and be ready for next year, you as his coach have to respect that. You can't force that kid to come in and play.
Yeah. Regardless if he doesn't stay or not. You know, that's between the family and the mentor and Cal.
Right.
You know, so it's
so
if Cal could have, I believe he would have, if it wasn't the family decision.
Right. Could Toppin have gotten more minutes in the St. Peter's game? Absolutely. He only played 16 minutes in that game.
Yeah.
So yes, there are things that you can complain about for Cal. One of the things people like to say is that he doesn't run any inbounds plays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the time he doesn't run them, but it's not like he's never ran them.
Right.
His philosophy has always been, let's just get the ball inbounds and we will run our stuff better than you can defend it.
Right. A lot of coaches do that.
Right. And a lot of coaches don't call timeouts at the end of games.
Right. A lot of coaches, Roy Williams, one that I know of that straight up can call and say,
people pointed to the North Carolina Baylor game at the end of regulation. Game's tied. North Carolina gets the ball across half court. Hubert Davis calls timeout.
Right.
And they're like, oh, so you can call timeout at the end of games.
Right.
And then what happens when they come out? They got 15 seconds on the clock. When they break that timeout and they get back on the floor, they dribbled around out front and jacked up a three from 30 feet. So, do you think Hubert Davis drew that play up to work like that?
Absolutely not.
Right. So, just because something doesn't necessarily work doesn't mean that a play was not drawn up.
Right.
Because there's guys on the other side that are defending you to stop those plays.
Yep.
And sometimes they do.
Yep.
So why, and I can agree with this, why, if you're Calipari, do you draw up some other play that may not work when if you just get the ball in and you run your stuff, you're probably going to get a good shot.
Yeah.
Even if it's, 10 or 12 seconds left on the shot clock.
Yeah.
You're going to end up with a good shot. And there's a Twitter account, Shot Quality, I think is what's at Shot Quality.
Yeah. Yep.
I sent you the screenshot of the Kentucky St. Peter's game.
Yeah.
For the quality of shots that St. Peter's got and that Kentucky got, there was a 98% chance that Kentucky would have won the game.
Fluke game. It happens.
But they missed the shots. That's what it ultimately came down to. They got good shots. They got good looks. They missed them.
Yeah.
Before Ty's injury, he was shooting over 70% inside of 15 feet. Do you think he was shooting anywhere close to that after that? No. Because he was missing everything.
Yeah.
And that comes back to a confidence and a mental issue with the injury. You've already been hurt twice. And you got bumped again in the second Florida game towards the end, and you saw him come up a little gimpy there. So that's going to play into how confident you are going into your shot and coming down and landing. Because Cal talked about every time he goes up and he lands on 1 foot, he misses the shot. Well, every time he was going up and he was shooting off 1 foot and landing on 1 foot.
Right.
So I don't think our backcourt, and when you are as perimeter oriented as Kentucky was this year with your scoring and your playmaking, and you have all four of those guys that are less than 100% in some way, especially your two primary ball handlers and playmakers in Ty Washington and Severe Wheeler, and then your best shooter, who from the Alabama game to the LSU game, his confidence just fucking disappeared.
Gone.
Like,
yeah.
And it makes it so much harder on your team to execute. But do you think Coach Cal is going to come out and say, yeah, these guys are struggling with their confidence. They're struggling with their shot. They're struggling, with mentally being ready for the games.
Right.
No. Why do you think he came out and said they were locked in? They're ready to go. Because he's trying to get his team confident and ready to go and believe in themselves and believe that they are the team that we saw up through mid-February.
Right. That was a
and
gripe.
not the team that we saw the last 10 games.
Right. That was a gripe of mine. Like, because, why come out and say, oh, we're locked in. I really like this practice, tweaked, whatever. And then after the game, you get beat by St. Peter's. It's, well, we've been nervous, all week.
He was nervous and they weren't really ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now you're trying to display confidence before the game and instill that confidence in your team. After the game, you're trying to protect your players.
Right. Exactly.
So now you want to be like, okay, this is what happened. Like, I was nervous because St. Peter's, they're a good team. They won their conference. They play good defense. And, so now you're trying to protect your team. And for people that say Cal never takes any blame, he always blames the players. Look at what he said after the game, and look at what he said in his open letter to the BBN, where he says, "Don't blame these kids. Put all of your blame and your anger towards me.
Come at me." Yeah.
Yeah. So he's absolutely holding himself accountable for what happened in these last two games.
Right.
And he's not blaming the kids.
Right. Like I said, to think that a coach with Cal's resume could not turn this around. And what I mean by turn around is last year and then this year, getting knocked out in the first round. If you think that he can't turn this around, you are absolutely crazy. So I haven't never been on fire Cal train.
I'm not either.
I think it's funny.
But
he's not above criticism.
We've never said that he's above criticism.
Right.
And people get it twisted when you start bringing out other factors and what could have caused the loss, that you're not blaming Calipari, that you're not holding him accountable for what happened.
Right.
You can do both, because both things contribute to the losses.
Right.
Coaching mistakes and the inability to make shots contributed to those losses.
Right. When you just say Cal is just a small pitcher,
right. He's one part. He's one part of a win or a loss.
Right.
Nobody gives him credit when they win.
Right.
But he gets all the blame when they lose.
Yeah.
So it's not that simple when it comes to winning and losing basketball games.
Right.
Ultimately, it's as simple as making shots. Right?
Yep. Yep.
That's what it ultimately comes down to, because we saw it from Tennessee last night against Michigan.
Yeah.
What'd they shoot from 3-point line last night, Jay?
Shit, I don't know, but I know it wasn't good.
2 for 18.
Yeah, I knew it was 2 for like 20.
11% from 3.
Yeah. I know they struggled,
lost the game. And they had a lot of good looks in that game too.
Yeah.
From 3.
Yeah.
So when you shoot that bad from 3 and you're struggling in all other aspects on the floor to score the ball, except for maybe your post guy like Kentucky,
right,
you're going to struggle to win games. And that's what happened this last 6-10 games, where we saw them kind of struggle.
Yeah.
Was they started to shoot poorly from 3.
Yeah. So Kentucky does fall in the first round to a 15 seed. St. Peter's, hats off to them. Wish them luck, and we just keep it moving. That's what it is. But I will ask you this.
Yeah.
What's next for Kentucky basketball as far as who's staying, who's leaving?
Well, I'm not going to go into all that yet, because things can always change.
Yeah.
We know one piece for sure that's going to be back next year
That's right.
with
My
Damian
guy.
Collins.
My
Has
guy.
already announced that he's coming back next year, which, there was a lot of scuttlebutt that last month or so of the season that, Damian Collins is going to transfer. He's a 5-star. He's not going to sit on the bench anymore, and
Right.
all this other stuff.
Right.
Obviously, that was wrong. And when he came into Kentucky, his dad flat out said, "We're not a one. We know
Right.
that we are not ready
Right.
to play basketball at this level. We know that it's going to be a year or two before he's going to be ready to contribute to the level that he may be capable of." So I'm not surprised that he came back.
We
And now
have
he's
the
gonna
tools. Let's let a Hall of Fame coach get him to where he needs to be.
Right. And now he's going to have a full, he had a full summer to get acclimated with the team.
Right.
And start on his weight program and all that stuff. Now he's going to have an entire off season.
Yeah.
So he's going to have an extra 3 months to be on that weight program, to be on that diet program, to be working out, to put on some weight. Because let's be honest,
Hey,
my
don't be
son,
talking about
who's
my guy.
my son, who's 5'10", 145 pounds, could have pushed Damian Collins all over the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. We saw that a few times this past year. Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the strength yet, and he's so long and gangly.
Yeah.
Like you see guys that grow that big, that fast, that long, that how unsure and uncoordinated they are.
Right.
And you can kind of see a little bit of that with Damian Collins.
Right.
Well,
we saw Ty's dad post out there. Year 1 in the books.
Year 1 in the books. Now, does that mean year 1
conversation up for speculation?
Exactly. Now, could it benefit Ty Washington to come back?
Of course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with the way that the season ended for him, from that Florida game on, where he struggled so mightily to shoot the ball. We know he's not that bad of a shooter.
Right.
Like, we know that. And NBA teams are going to know that because they saw what he was like before that.
Yeah.
But we also saw him struggle in some of the biggest games this year.
Yeah.
He didn't struggle against Tennessee, and he wasn't struggling against Auburn because it seemed like he had kind of found his footing in those games. Yeah. He went for what was it, 27, 28 against Tennessee. Yeah. And, he was already lighting up Auburn in that game. So it's not like he didn't have that ability to perform in those big games. But then he gets hurt, and that kind of, like I said, affected his confidence, and that's going to affect you. You're going to think about everything. You're going to think about your ankle. You're going to think about your shot. It's not going in. So now instead of just shooting it instinctually, you're thinking about it.
Yeah. In your head.
It's in your head. And but I think that coming back could benefit him. And with NIL, we don't know how much money he's making in the NIL.
NIL is going to change the landscape of college basketball.
People keep talking like, well, he's going to make, so-and-so is going to make X amount in the draft, and he's not going to make that with the NIL. But that's not the point. You don't have to completely replace whatever you would have made in your NBA contract.
Right.
If you get drafted with your NIL money. But what it does do is it already gives you that revenue stream. You've already got money coming in, to where you can focus on getting better as a basketball player.
Making money toward your dream.
You don't have to worry about, like, I have to get to the league right now.
Right.
And I've got to start making money so I can take care of my family.
Right.
Because we know guys like Ty Washington are probably pulling in 6 to 7 figures.
Yeah.
In their NIL. Don't tell me he can't help his family when he's making that much money.
Right. Make some money on my road to my dream.
But now it makes him think, okay, I can work. I got these things that I need to work on. And I'm not saying this specifically for Ty. Any player.
Right, right.
I've got these specific things that I need to work on that I can now work on and improve my draft stock.
Yeah.
While I'm in school, working towards my degree, and I'm still making money because of NIL.
Right.
And now I can improve that draft stock next year.
Yeah, to make even more money.
To make more money. And maybe I'm not going to be out of the league in 2 years or 3 years because I wasn't quite ready when they drafted me, and I never got to that point where I could stick in the league. So
Right.
now maybe a year or two extra in college. Now you stick in the league and you get that second contract,
Right.
maybe that third
and
contract.
that's what it's
And
about.
that's where the
Is
big
second
money
and
starts
third.
coming in.
Right.
That's where the
Right.
big money starts coming in. So NIL, it's not going to change, those surefire can't miss top 5
Right.
picks
Right.
staying in school. It's not going to change those guys, especially for projecting number 1. Like Jabari Smith is not staying at Auburn another year.
Right.
Chet Holmgren's not staying at Gonzaga another year. Those guys like that aren't staying in school. But when you start having those guys that are down around, at 10, 12, 15 range and lower, maybe
Yeah.
they start thinking about coming back instead of leaving because they think they have to go so they can start making money to take care of their family.
Exactly.
And, or guys like Oscar, who right now aren't even projected as first round picks.
Right. I was going to
But-
bring up Oscar. What do you think?
But in the past, he probably would have left after this year. After the year that he had, National Player of the Year,
Yeah.
SEC Player of the Year, SEC first team.
Ended
like-
with 515 rebounds.
Right. Any other year before NIL, he would have left.
Yeah.
Guaranteed he would have left. Because he's always said he wants to take care of his mom and his family. And for him, the only way he can really do that to the level he probably wants to do that is by making money as a professional. But now he got cleared to make NIL money. So now we've already heard the reports that there's a $3 million, $4 million NIL deal on the table for him if he comes back next year.
Yeah. Plus a
Yeah.
college degree.
Plus a college degree. So guys like Oscar might be thinking differently. And I've heard that Oscar wants to come back, but who knows what the people in his ear, not Coach Cal and the coaching staff, but the other people in his ear, who knows what they're saying to him.
Exactly.
We don't know what way they're pushing him. So I think I would say I would put the percentage for Oscar 60-40 he comes back.
Right.
Because we know how much he loves the BBN, he loves the fans, and he
Very
loves playing at
passionate
Rupp,
kid,
and he loves Coach Cal. We know all of that about Oscar. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he comes back.
Right.
And Keon Brooks, he's probably
gone.
leaving in in some way.
Yeah, he's gone.
Whether it's going overseas to play, seeing where maybe he does, go to workouts for NBA teams and wow them.
Right.
Ends up getting drafted in the second round. Let's hope he does.
Yeah.
That's every kid's dream that goes and plays D1 basketball is to be a professional basketball player. Or maybe he transfers somewhere. We don't know what's going to happen with Keon. I think Toppin comes back. I think Ware comes back. I think Allen.
I think
Again,
he
that's
stays. I think he stays just for NIL, and he's still working.
Right.
I think he stays. The staff is working with him, and
I
I think
think
he'll
it's-
eventually get there.
I think the percentage he stays is lower than him going. Maybe 45, 55. So I think it's a little bit on the he goes side.
Right.
And maybe with KP at Louisville now, maybe he goes to Louisville because their roster is like completely decimated. So
L's
there's
down.
there may not be any competition for him getting playing time at Louisville.
Right.
Wheeler, again, he's another guy that really doesn't have a place in the NBA. So, he's already transferred once. He can't transfer again, without sitting out. So I think Wheeler probably comes back. We
Yeah.
talked about Ty.
Yeah.
So
Let me bring this up, and
they've
we'll
got-
wrap
they've
this
got
next up.
they've got a good potential core of returning players. CJ Frederick's obviously coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going to have that sniper out there to shoot the ball.
Let me ask you this, Shaden
yeah.
Sharp. Mum's the word.
Yeah.
For now, but what's next for Kentucky? You'll have to
I hope
wait and find
that's
out.
it. I hope Shaden and his camp stick to their word.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I hope. But ultimately, we don't know.
We don't know.
You know, you've got to take them at their word when they tell you something, though.
And if it doesn't happen like that, then that's that kind of messes up a relationship.
Or
That
maybe
re-
not, because I don't know if he's necessarily
Or will
coaching
Cal will be
anymore.
next time and be like, well, you know what? We're not
But
going to do that
But
again.
what I'm saying is, I don't know if Dwayne Washington is necessarily coaching anybody anymore.
Right.
Just put that away, and
Lock
you know,
that up.
you can maybe see where I'm going there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I hope that they don't go back on their word from
Right.
what they told Cal.
Yeah.
Uh, because to me, that's a shitty thing to do.
Yeah.
It happens. We know it happens. It happens in recruiting. It happens everywhere. People tell you
Right.
one thing, then do something else. I still think that's a shitty thing to do and a shitty way to go about your life, to tell people one thing and then do something else.
Right. And
You
that's
know,
the perfect way to lead us in to the next segment of what's next for Kentucky. Uh, because it's shitty. And that
this
would
year
be,
is shitty. You
yeah,
know, and there's a lot of people that think the history of Kentucky basketball is a Final Four every 3 or 4 years, and title every 4 or 5 years. You know, that's not it. Kentucky went 20 years from 58 to 78 between titles. They went another 18 years from 78 to 96 before they got another title.
yeah,
They went another 14 years between titles from 98 to 2012. So let's not act like this, 7-10 year drought is something that's never happened to the Kentucky program.
right,
I'm not saying we have to accept it. I'm not saying we have to be happy about it. Two separate issues there. You can recognize what happened in the first 6 years under Cal was extremely rare.
right.
There's a list of 3 coaches to go to 4 Final Fours in 5 years.
Yeah.
Name them, Jay.
I have no idea.
John Wooden, Coach K, John Calipari.
Right.
That's it. That's the list.
Damn, that's,
It doesn't happen.
I was going to
Those
say
kind of
John Wooden and
runs,
Cal. I didn't know the third, but yeah.
those kind of runs do not happen.
No, that's
Coach K has 2 titles in the last 22 years.
yeah. And with that being said, you know what time it is. The dumbest shit from Twitter this week. What do you got, JD?
Well, let's go.
There's a coach.
I knew.
There is
There's a coach about 65 miles west of Lexington.
A coach. Is that what we're calling him? A coach.
Well, that's what they call him.
L's down.
Coach Satterfield.
Yeah.
After Kentucky lost to St. Peter's,
Yeah.
tweeted out, "St. Peter's is my new favorite team. Congrats, Coach Shaw 10." Really?
Like what you're gonna have to have some wins against Kentucky and not get your
Right.
brains beat in before you
Before
start talking
you-
shit.
And Vince Marrow came back after him. Like, he's like, "I know there ain't a guy down the road that's talking this mess after what we've done to him the last 3 years."
Yeah.
You
And
know.
it just shows you how goofy this dude is.
Right. I understand rival fan bases, like Louisville fans talking shit to Kentucky fans, Tennessee fans talking shit, us talking shit back. Like, that happens.
Hold up. Did you hear that? Lynn Bolden just scored another touchdown against Louisville.
But to have the head coach tweet that shit out after what we've done the last 3 years to Louisville,
Beat their brains in.
right? It's freaking crazy, But whatever, man.
What a
If it makes him feel better about himself, he looks like a complete fucking idiot.
Goof. L's down. Don't let me see him in person because he was
like,
mad over the L's down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw him
Absolutely.
right in his face.
I already took vacation. I put in vacation for this year for the Louisville football game, so that I could be there this year.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna run up on him,
dude. If I get a chance to, if I see him, like if I'm there early and I'm at the player entrance, whatever, and they're walking in, and I like, you better believe the L's down is happening.
It's happening. It's going down.
But like when I saw that, I was like, really? That's where you're going?
Wow.
With that?
Goof. Right.
Yeah. Freaking crazy.
And I will say that St. Peter's, the Peacocks, have been trolling pretty good, but
they have
not on this episode. They have a right to do so.
They have every right to.
They have earned that right
to tweet out the state of Kentucky with the peacock in it.
Yeah. And once again, hats off to them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did see a shirt though. I don't know if you saw it that said the Peacock St. Peter's is happier than Rex Chapman in the Apple store.
Like, dude, I get people don't like. Hold on. Okay, let's talk about that.
That's pretty wild.
I get Rex Chapman is polarizing. I get it. People don't like his politics. He said some stupid shit on CBS the other day about Pete Gillen being dead.
He also said that Coach K was his favorite coach.
But you gotta remember.
So he's now.
I don't like that stuff. But I'm not going to get upset about it.
That's a troll game, though.
Right. I'm not going to get upset about that. I'm not going to let it hurt my feelings.
Right.
Why? Why should I? I don't really care what Rex Chapman thinks about the coaches. I don't care who his favorite coach is. But at some point, people like that idiot that was wearing that shirt need to stop bringing up somebody's lowest point.
Right.
Who was battling addiction, who has fought back from that addiction, cleaned himself up. Because if you saw him 5 years ago and you see the dude now, it's night and day. You could see the issues and how heavy and how bad it was affecting his health, his life, and everything. And it's obvious because of what happened with the Apple Store. But for fuck's sake, move on. I hate that in this country, once you are convicted of a crime, it's held against you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because the point of our judicial system and the prison system is for you to pay your debt to society for when you break the law, right?
Yeah.
So once you go to prison for whatever reason, or you've gotten your penalty and you've paid your fines and your probation and all, and you've dealt with all that and you've gone through all that and you've finished all that, why do we as a society in this country continue to hold those things against those people that may not ever break the law again? Because do you think Rex Chapman's going to walk into an Apple store and steal anything again?
Oh, no.
Do you think Rex Chapman's going to get in trouble like that again?
Probably not.
Right. He's moved on. He learned from it.
Even though he didn't spend a day in jail.
Right.
I will say that. He didn't spend a day in jail. So, and then it wasn't 5 months later that the University of Kentucky gave him a job.
I get all that.
They let him go, but still, he didn't. What debt did he pay?
And I get that.
For 8 felonies.
He did finish his.
If that'd been me or you, JD, we would. Still
I get
be
that. There's a
different
different judicial system for people that have money and people that don't. I understand that, but that's not the point of this little rant. The point is he was still punished. He still paid. He had fines to pay, and he went through and he did all that. He did everything that he was supposed to do. He went through rehab. He did everything that he was supposed to do. But now people still want to keep bringing up and saying stuff to him and about him for the lowest point in his life. What does that say about you as a person when you continually keep going at somebody for the lowest point in their life?
That's true.
Move the fuck on. Get on with your life and stop worrying about Rex fucking Chapman.
Facts. What do you got next, JD?
I think you got this because I don't have any access to our show Twitter account other than seeing what you tweet. But our buddies over there at WST said, "Hey, Religiously Kentucky, how gonna defend this stupid shit?" So he couldn't even write the tweet out right. And I think that came to you at what, after the St. Peter's game?
Okay.
I think that came to you after the St. Peter's game and that loss. And you've gotten tweets and DMs from him saying that they live rent free in our minds. Buddy, we don't give a shit about you, really. We really don't. But you replied to him rent free, huh?
Like, yeah,
With two laughing emojis.
This is like 3 weeks later.
Right. And
Haven't talked to the person, haven't tweeted at him other than
we had
his
him on
tweets being on this segment.
Right.
3 weeks later, he says something.
So, and then he replies back, "Hey, I mean, I'm pretty much taking my victory lap tonight because I was right. And I assure you, 90% of the fan base agrees with me tonight." Dude, you're fucking cheering for a loss.
Yeah.
You're happy over a loss.
And the fact that you wasn't right and have never been right.
Right.
Over nothing.
Right.
This is my point. You don't have basketball takes. All you do is throw hissy fits like a little fucking kid.
Mm-hmm. Which brings me to your
like,
reply.
I'm right. We have a radio show and now we got a podcast, and he pointed that out to me like, bitch, I didn't come to you. You came to me. So who's living rent free?
All you do is throw fits like a child. You never say anything remotely close to what is happening with Kentucky sports. We don't defend this or any loss. We explain what happened in the game. That's a difference, little guy. You throw fits, we explain, you live a sad little life. All 100% true, because that's all he does.
That was my reply to him.
Right. And that's all he does. That's all I've ever, before they blocked me.
Yeah.
That's all I ever saw was pissing and moaning and complaining.
Right.
And never actually any thought about what happened in a game.
Exactly. This segment is called the dumbest shit from Twitter this week. If you have a dumb, shitty take, then you will get called out.
And it doesn't matter.
Several. That's why he has been on this segment, because
it doesn't matter who you are. And it doesn't matter who you are.
You could have 3 followers. You could have 100,000.
Right. And it doesn't matter if you're in the media, not in the media. It doesn't matter who you are. We started doing this segment as a fun little joke.
Right.
Little Adam over there takes this shit way too seriously. Way too seriously.
Way.
And the first time we put him on this segment, the reason we went into him as hard as we did is because of the shit that he was DMing us that he's not going to tell you about.
Right.
So let's not act like we went in as hard as we did that first time just because of the tweet. There was a whole other bunch of stuff beyond that and behind that first time he was on this segment. So
right. And he will continue being on this segment when he tweets dumb shit.
Right.
We don't care who you are. You tweet some dumb shit, we're going to call you out.
And buddy, it doesn't matter that you have us blocked. People still screenshot the tweets and send them to us.
Clowns.
So we never said there was nobody, that Cal had no blame in the loss or any loss. We've never said that. But we look at the entire game and not just one aspect of a game.
Right.
Because everything goes into a loss and not just the coaching.
Right. And Adam, you are a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it moving. That was the dumbest shit from Twitter this week. Well. Great episode. Well, I don't want to say great because we left in the first round, but
Right.
we talked facts. Why? Holding people accountable for this disappointing loss. And that's what it was, disappointing. But what's next for Kentucky? The few weeks coming up, we'll see.
Right. And we're going to start hearing things about players leaving, staying.
Right.
You know, what's going to happen. We're going to start hearing that stuff more than just what we heard today from Damian Collins.
Right.
You know, the next few weeks we'll probably hear the majority of what's going on. Maybe not with the players that are thinking about leaving for the NBA.
Right.
You know, we're talking about Ty Washington. You know, we may not hear anything about him for a while, you know, because they've got to go and start talking to the NBA guys and, you know, getting all that feedback on whether or not they want to go through the entire process. But I think we'll start hearing rumblings and hearing from guys that we talk to about what might be happening, what might be going on with some of these players.
Right. And that's where we are. Go Big Blue as always. Keep it moving. Baseball, football is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Quit being sad.
Spring games in what, 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Read a book.
So
catch some Netflix, and it'll be back around before you know it. I'm your guy, Jay Hayes, and he is
JD Hall.
And we are Religiously Kentucky.
This was another episode of Religiously Kentucky.
It was great. Thanks for the hospitality.
If you liked this episode, make sure to give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes and our opinionated take on the world of Kentucky sports. Religiously Kentucky.